G'day and welcome to the Campfire Project. And first of all, I'm here with David Berman, who is a mental wellness coach. How are you, David?
Yeah, I'm good, Alan. Thanks for having me on the panel today.
It's good to have you back again. And then we have Irena, who is the creator and owner of Food and Mood Coaching. How are you, Irena?
I'm very well, thank you.
And we have McGrath, who is the founder and CEO of Restore Balance and Harmony. How are you, Maria?
Fantastic. Great to be here. Thanks, Alan.
Well, I'm thinking that's going to be a great conversation, and we were talking about the subject of conscious evolution of humanity. And to put that in more simple terms, what's possible when awareness expands and we live with a deeper understanding of connection. Now, Irena, that was the subject that you'd proposed that we would talk to today. So using my usual style here of passing the ball very quickly, I'd love you to lead us into the conversation. What was the thing that instigated the thought of that subject with you?
Okay, well, I've been thinking a lot about connection, because connection, and especially connection in relationships, you know, whether it be a friendship, whether it be, you know, your parents, whether it be your spouse. I believe that when that connection is there, you actually, you have a much better balance in your life, and you are less likely to perhaps seek that connection with something else. It could be, I don't know, could be like an unfavorable habit like gambling. So when you have, it doesn't mean that it guarantees it. It just means that when you truly connect to your community, to your, you know, in all your relationships, you feel much more balanced. Okay, so that's my start. I'll throw it over to the other guys.
Okay, well, first of all, I was thinking that when it comes, you know, if you've got addictions and forms, then it's very hard in life. But if you've got that balance, as you said, then the chances of becoming addicted to something is less likely.
Much less likely, yeah. Because you're much happier as well, you know, because the thing is, we're creatures of, we need people around us. We need community, right? And when we're alone, we tend to, you know, sometimes get depressed and we get down. And I mean, it's been proven so many times that when people, especially the elderly, if they live alone and if they're not active, you know, and they're not connecting to other people, their lifespan diminishes. So, you know, I'd love to hear from others about that. But yeah, I think connection is very important for healthy relationships too.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks to me like we're all always connected.
Of course.
Although we don't always have awareness of this. And I think that that's where part of that subtitle is so relevant. When awareness expands, you know, what becomes possible. So we're just kind of experiencing the rise and the fall, up and down all the time, of awareness of many things, connection being one of them. But the truth is that connection is constant. It doesn't actually change. It's only the awareness of it that's changing.
That's one way of looking at it for sure.
Yeah, and I see it so clearly that way because there's lots of other things that are just like that, where we experience rise and fall of awareness, even though the actual experience, the experience and the fact become two separate things. So laughter is the one for me that I've been able to see and experience so clearly. Like, your infinite laughter supply is always available. You can always choose to laugh, but it doesn't always seem like that. So the awareness is rising and falling, even though the fact about laughter does not change. And I see it the same way with connection and other things as well.
So perhaps it's the plugging in and the plugging out. Just as you were talking, that's kind of the visual that I had, that often when people get busy with life, they like not plug out, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, I have that visual that, yes, we are always connected. We're not always aware of that. And the awareness is very important. But I think often we take the PowerPoint out, or the plug, or whatever you want to call it. And that's when the awareness goes as well. That's just a mental image that I had. I'd love to hear from you guys.
I do think that the connection has changed over time. Like, we're more connected now than ever before, but we're putting less effort into that connection. Like, giving someone a thumbs up or a like on Facebook That's not connection.
No.
Even though it might be, oh, you know, yes, I seen your comment and I
Totally.
commented, it's not connection.
100%.
We need the deeper connection. And I think we've got lazier with doing that with technology expanding. And I think over the last couple of years as well, we've withdrawn into a cocoon, and now we're struggling to get back out there with connection as well. So I felt that very deeply because I work from home too. I turned 50 this year. That's
Happy birthday.
I have to connect. I have to have more girls' weekends. I have to get out. I went and took a job just at a service station so that I could talk to people face to face. I wanted to connect, and that was a really big thing for me. So I made conscious effort to go out and do things. I started, you know, selling jewelry so I could have girls in a room and we could have a glass of wine and connect. It was all about connection. And I think we do have to make that conscious effort instead of thinking the lazy way of connecting, which we do get into a habit of doing.
It's a really good point.
Maria, I don't think there's a difference between the girls' weekend and the like on Facebook. I mean, on the surface, it can seem like there is, but what you're talking about is one experience of connection versus another experience of connection, and neither one reflect the fact of connection. This is what I'm saying. One's going up and down all the time, right? It maybe only goes up the tiniest little bit, imperceptible when you like something on Facebook. Maybe it goes up a bit more. You can be more aware of it when you're on a girls' weekend, but it's still the experience you're talking about, not the fact of it that you're talking about, that is here for us to explore.
Well, I think that comes down to another awareness of what happens when we create awareness of the difference between the female brain and emotion and the male brain and emotion, where it is, we need the deeper connection.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
That doesn't feel like, well, I know we all need it, but there with the hormones and everything else that we have as females, it feels differently to us.
I'm not trying to disparage the girls' weekend at all, because I've done things that are along the lines of what you're talking about, like some casual jobs where I'm at the Royal Melbourne Show, for example, scanning tickets just because I want to talk to hundreds and hundreds of people all day. And I want to have that experience of connection. So I'm not in any way disparaging it. I'm just trying to differentiate between the experience of connection and the fact of connection. When I talk about the fact of connection, it's a very deep idea. It's a spiritual idea. It says we're all one spiritual being having billions of human experiences, even though it doesn't always seem like that. And that seeming part, that's the awareness going up and down. The fact is, on a spiritual level, nothing's changing.
Can I just put something in? Can I just add something to the connection soup?
Yes, so, that's what we're here for.
So I actually think that we feel connection differently. We think of connection. No, we feel connection differently. So what Maria's talking about is how she feels it. What you're talking about is how you feel it. I don't think that there's a right and wrong.
No,
definitely
not.
No two people are going to be the same. There's going to be the male experience, there's going to be the female experience, and there's a noticeable difference there. But within each group, if there's a billion people there, there's a billion different experiences and different ways in which we take it. Also, the words we use, the meaning that I put on connection might be completely different one to you.
That's exactly right.
So understanding. This is where I love asking questions, because the more I can ask that question, the more you can explain to me, the more I can understand what it is to you.
Exactly.
And where you are in awareness of your own consciousness, of your own emotional intelligence, also has to do with how you would see connection, because there'd be a lot of people that would not even think about
it exactly
that of connection, or on that spiritual level that we're all connected. They're not in that space of understanding that, if that makes sense.
Totally. And I think also different people need different connections and different depth of connection, right? I think some people can do well without as much. Other people, like I know for me, I need to be connected. Like that's just something that I love, and it's really important. And when I become a little disconnected, I can really feel a shift in my energy. I can really feel it. Like it's just obvious, and shift in my mindset and the decisions that I make. So that's my experience with connection.
Yeah. See, I'm a born introvert, so I can survive on my own quite a bit. I'm very much like a hermit. Most of my time is actually spent on the internet like this, where I'm talking to other people.
Connecting on the internet.
Yeah, funny thing that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But again, it depends. Well, as I was saying before, everyone's connected, but to what level do they do it, and for what purpose as well?
Yeah.
I'll spend a bit of time here, and then I'll withdraw back to my cave, so to speak. Spend some time on my own, read a book, whatever it might be, and that can be enough for me. Other people, I've got a mate in hospital at the moment who's in a very bad way, but I know he's suffering because he hasn't got the connection with the people that he had before, and because of his age, he's lost a lot of close friends, and so connection to him has got a completely different value and meaning to him than it has to me.
Yeah. And isn't it ironic, like what Maria was saying about Facebook or about the thumbs up and stuff like that, that originally when Mark, I don't know what his surname is, Zuckerberg or
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, that's it. I can never pronounce it. There's a burger in there somewhere, I think. When he came up with the concept of Facebook, I think for him, his idea behind it was connection. But and I know, Dave, you said that it is a connection, right, on a certain level, and I agree that it is. But I think it's a connection on a shallow level.
Yeah.
It's still a connection, of course it is, especially for people who might be stuck at home, or maybe for Alan's friend who could be at hospital. Maybe for him that's the only way that he can connect, which can actually be a bonus, right? Can be a positive thing. But then there are people, and I mentioned that before, who are addicted to social media, who are addicted to Facebook, and are spending a large amount of time what I call consuming, not creating, but consuming, right? They're consuming information, they're scrolling, rather than actually using their brains to create. So that's another, I don't know. I don't want to go off the subject, but just something that I thought of.
With the connections, so there's an interesting thing, with the connections that we each have today, over the last couple of years, how have the connections that we've strove for and everything else, how has that changed for each of us individually?
Say that again, Alan. I didn't quite understand.
Like over the last couple of years with COVID and everything else, and isolations and all the other things, the level of connection, I think before COVID, that we didn't really put much thought into connection, because that's just the way life ran at the time. But when we lost the connection, we started to realize that, and just wondering what sort of impact that had on each of you when it came to realizing the connection that you had or didn't have, and how that's changed the way that you look at things today, because we're talking about expanding the understanding.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Irene.
No, Dave, you go ahead.
Well, I see it really opposite from that, Alan. To me, when things shut down around the world, that showed me just more evidence of how we're all connected all the time, even when we're not aware of it. One person was the first person to get COVID. And then the whole world shut down. And if one person in a community became sick, the implications then seem to affect everybody. Like, we could see the connection, and you could take it out of the context of COVID and look at it in any which way. I mean, I like to think about the relationship between humans and trees, right? Our breathing is reciprocal, right? Like, we need trees to produce carbon dioxide, or to produce oxygen. Right, and they need us to produce carbon dioxide, and so we have this this relationship with trees. Like, we're connected. So I see the connection as being a fact. It doesn't change. The only thing that's changing is our awareness or our experience.
Awareness.
Yeah.
So right, the awareness and the experience. So when COVID began, actually a lot of things for me didn't really change. I saw the nature of things more clearly is what it was. And then other people were experiencing changes so much more pronounced in their experience than I was aware of in my experience. And that just looked like opportunity to me to start talking to people more who I always wanted to be talking with more, but who wouldn't make themselves available, like my dad. Like I started talking to my dad a lot
That's
more
fantastic.
because he was just willing.
Yeah. That's definitely there was definitely that happening without a doubt. I mean, we were connecting. I would say that my family and I were connecting more on Zoom than we probably would normally, or on a regular basis. And I think I don't know for you guys, but I appreciated my relationships with people so much more. Like maybe I never even thought about them in the past very much, but when COVID hit,
as David said, everything's always been connected, always has been, and always will be. It's one of the constant things that will never change. Everybody around the world impacts on everybody else in one way or another. But it's more the understanding of that. I think a lot of us took that for granted before, all those things. They then raised our awareness about, hey, things weren't as we thought they were. They changed dramatically. In some people, they felt they were disconnected because all of a sudden they weren't talking to people as much or being around people. But some of us, as David said, his consciousness or connection to that consciousness of the connection became stronger.
That's why this is about conscious evolution of humanity to me. Because as you've said a couple of times now, understanding, Alan, I think this is really where it's at. When we understand the fact of connection versus the fluctuating awareness of connection, it's that understanding that allows for any one of us in human form to contribute to the conscious evolution that we experience as an apparent individual and then collectively.
A lot of people a lot of people would probably glaze over them, like what you just said, Dave.
I know.
That's
been my experience. That's
sure.
why I'm so grateful to be part of this group to discuss it.
And there's a big a notable difference, I guess, between a physical connection, which I think is what you're talking about, the physical connection, we're all connected, but it's emotional connection that we have to gain the awareness on to build better relationships that are then going to create a better world, I think, for all of us. And it's the emotional awareness, the emotional connection that is probably lacking, that we're not reaching out and physically doing.
Well, having said that, I actually
just as important.
Sorry, Marie, I didn't.
No, you're right. We need all parts. The physical, the emotional, the mental.
I wasn't talking about physical, but I mean, I can agree with that. I mean, they're all pieces of the same puzzle.
Speaking of connections, actually something really interesting happened. I went to a retreat about 2 weeks ago, and I mean, I don't know, you guys might laugh at me, but I had a soul reading, which I'd never had before. And I discovered that I have a second God spark in the 7th chakra. Apparently only 1% of people have that, or 1% of the population. I'm not saying I'm special, please. I just found it really interesting that we're talking about.
What does it mean?
It means a connection to God. So when you have a second God spark, it means you're here to do like meaningful work. It doesn't mean that what other people do is not meaningful work, but something like, not charity work, but like kind of Mother Teresa-ish. A lot of people don't like her, but something along those lines. I'm still exploring it, but it was interesting that I had that reading, and we're talking about connections. There's there's another connection there, right? Yeah. Just something interesting. Anyone have anything to say about that?
Not directly about that, but I wanted to go back to Maria's distinction between physical and emotional.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't trying to make that distinction at all. I was referring to the understanding of the spiritual connection that's maybe more in line with what you're talking about too, Irena. I'm not really sure. But yeah, for me, the big distinction not being physical and emotional, but being fact versus experience. Fact isn't changing, but experience or awareness of experience is what's fluctuating.
So the fact could be the connection of all the physical, the emotional, everything else, but our awareness of it, how we respond each day, that's going up and down. And I've noticed that with in myself, and I also noticed that within people around me through COVID and everything else. I'm sure there's different things when they happen. Every large event that's happened in the world, you can see the variation, that up and down effect right at that point. But the fact is that everything is still they're connected spiritually, emotionally, physically, etc. And where you put your focus, some people might focus more on the emotional side of the connection, and others more on the physical side.
On the physical side, I mean, connection can mean like it's just such a different term. That and we actually, I think, use it quite not loosely, but we use it a lot more than what we realize. Like, I connected with someone, or but I wonder when we use it whether we're aware of the depth of it, or we just kind of use it loosely. I
think at that point, that's when it's good to actually ask a person when they've said they've got that connection. You go, well, what was that connection? So
what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
It's like, are you okay day? We asked everybody, are you okay? And everybody would say, yeah, I'm fine. Well, my interpretation of fine is freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
That's why you ask them, how are you feeling?
And when they say, are you okay? And they go, yes. And okay, well, tell me about being okay. Tell me about how well that's.
What does okay look like to you?
And starting to get conversation, because again, it always comes back to understanding. We've always got to think, well, even if somebody uses the word physical, in what context are they using the word physical? To what type of physical connection are they talking about? So I'm sitting here, and if I put my hand on the objects around me, I'm physically connected to them. But then it's other people will be talking about some other type of physical connection, etc. And different type. They might refer to just being around physical connection by being able to hug their family, for instance. Another person talking about physical just being in that, being in nature. The fire going behind them, the water flowing, and everything else, and hearing the sounds and being physically in that space. So again, we always got to say to somebody, well, tell me more about that experience.
Or what does connection mean to you? What does it look like? How does it feel, because I think, different people have different perceptions. But I just thought of something, Dave. Are you talking about the connection that you're talking about more is the fact that we're all vibrating particles and we're all connected to I thought so.
Like the infinite energy of the universe.
That's right.
is one.
Totally.
And we're each a unique expression of that. So this is what I mean by understanding and what I mean by fact, but then we each have our own unique experience of it that's fluctuating constantly.
And I still think that we plug in and plug out. Do you guys know the movie Matrix? Right, when Neo was like unplugged and he was born again, or like I'm not a huge fan of that movie. I've seen some of it, but that's kind of how I see us. Sometimes we're more present and we plug back into the connection, and sometimes we plug out. I mean, that's just an analogy that I'm using. I'm quite a visual person, so I see things in pictures. And the other thing that I see, Dave, is I see our connection as like little cutout people that are holding hands. You know how it goes infinitely. Do you know what I'm saying? Again, I'm just visual.
I see so many people, and out there. Like, we have groups where we're having this conversation and all of us have a different sense of awareness of ourselves and the world and other people around us. But I see a lot of people that are simply on autopilot. They have
totally.
no awareness of what they're doing or what they're thinking or how they can make change or how they can connect, or they're just simply on autopilot. It's like putting it on, you know, on the plane and flying to a destination, and they're not taking notice of anything in between.
No, well, you know, we've got something like 70 to 80,000 thoughts going through our brain on a daily basis. Most people are only aware of like what, 2% of that?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the autopilot you're talking about. And that's what I mean about plugging in and plugging out. They are probably plugged out and they've been plugged out for a while. That's just how I'm expressing it. I'm sorry if I'm causing any confusion.
I think that's where we want to create the conscious evolution, to get them to see themselves and to start connecting with themselves first and then connecting with others.
Exactly.
Then we're going to create better relationships and a more harmonious world.
Yeah,
and
it
I think there
always
needs
starts
to be
with ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's
There
like
needs
in
to be more
profiling.
awareness.
It's
Sorry,
like in
Alan.
profiling. If I'm, I always say to people, before you can read somebody else and communicate with them, you have to know yourself first of all. You need to know where you are in the universe so you can change the way that you like to be spoken to match the way that they do. Tune your transmitter into their receiver.
Yeah.
And so we always need to know ourselves first.
This is
connect with ourselves.
This I think points to what I've learned many times over and over, that we learn from experience, not from words.
Totally.
Yeah. So for me, what's like my whole journey has been about exploring the experience of this infinite laughter supply that we have inside of us that doesn't depend on anything external, no jokes or humor or funny. Like, those are all great things, but they're not necessary for the experience of that laughter that's within each of us to come out. And then for me, laughing with people around the world, in particular, at the beginning of COVID, I increased my daily laughter experience. I mean, I've been laughing now every day for almost 12 years. But when COVID was just getting started, I was hosting between 2 and 4 laughter sessions online every day. So people are coming onto Zoom with me. We're laughing for 15 minutes, and then we're just having a conversation about, what did you notice?
Yeah.
What was in your experience? And the whole point was to deepen our understanding about the nature of laughter, the nature of thought, the nature of connection, the things that are not changing, that we can see from different perspectives, as our awareness is the thing that's changing.
Have you seen that lady online where she gets you to laugh? She starts off with one sound, then another sound, then another sound, then another sound. By the time she's done about 5 or 6 sounds, you're pissing yourself laughing. Sorry to say pissing, but I'm in stitches. I'll have to send it to you, Dave, if you haven't seen it. It's amazing. Just it's a really good tool to use when you're feeling down and you don't want to laugh. But when you watch that video, you can't help but laugh, because she goes something like like I don't remember all the sounds, but it's intriguing. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah. So since you're talking about laughing, and I love laughing so much, I just thought I'd tell you about it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know who you're referring to, but I've myself made, thousands of videos about laughing, and I used to teach that exactly as a way for people new to the idea to discover how easily they can experience laughter. But where my exploration has taken me is that, that's not even necessary. That's a technique that isn't necessary, because what sort of transcends techniques is understanding. When you understand that you've got this infinite laughter supply, the only thing that's ever getting in the way of allowing it out is your own thinking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So for me, understanding is absolutely the linchpin to getting the nature of thought, getting the fact of connection, the oneness of all things.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Maria, you were going to say?
No, I just said the emotion as well as the thinking, the emotion can stop the laughter as well. I know when I was in that place of deep depression, people around me, I would laugh, but I never felt it in my body. You know, after doing the healing, it was just like, oh, wow, now I can feel it everywhere. It's something that ripples and vibrates, which I would suspect that, Dave, that's how you feel that laughter, but it wasn't always how I felt it when there was that ton of emotional baggage on top. And it's an amazing thing that everybody should be able to feel that sense of laughter, that beautiful sensation that ripples all the way through your body.
You've got to change your, sorry.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to say, to get to people to the point where they can understand that, you know, using little triggers like you were talking about, Irena, you know, to get people to start, and once they start to experience some laughter, and through the process of discussions you have with them, the awareness will come, the understanding will come.
Yeah, and also the experience. Because once you, I mean, when I know, Dave, that you're talking about something like deeper than that, like better than that video. But when I first watched that video, I could not believe that in like in 10 seconds, I was laughing, not just laughing, but that's why I said I was pissing myself laughing. I couldn't control myself.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it was just, it's something so simple, but it's amazing how, I mean, Maria said emotions, you said thinking, but our emotions come from our thinking.
That's right.
The way we think influences the way we feel, and the way we think and feel gets influence what action we take, and the results we see in our lives is all a combination of that, right?
That's it.
So you've got to start with the thinking. Yeah.
Well, to change the thinking that took us into the bad emotions in the first place, the bad feelings, we've then got to transfer that to all the type of feelings that we'd like to feel. And when you're experiencing those feelings and then you're thinking about it, those feelings, you've changed your thinking without ever having to deal with the original thinking.
Yeah,
that was always a way to do it, but it got the awareness then. So now you're getting a little bit of experience with it, and when the experience comes, you then start to get a bit more understanding with it. And so it's a progression. Some people will get there fast, others will take longer, simply because of their background, who they are, because there's no two people on the planet who are the same. Everyone's different.
Well, most of the time when our thoughts are not serving us, we're not aware of them, right?
Yeah.
And that's the subconscious thinking. So to bring it out and to change the thinking, you've got to do it consciously. You've got to make that conscious decision.
I don't think so.
No.
I think what you're describing is doing, whereas what I'm talking about is being. Thoughts change on their own, and we get in the way of thoughts changing on their own, or the mind quieting itself, which it will when we get out of the way. We get very drawn into thinking about our thinking.
I agree with you. Totally.
And that just makes things harder, more challenging, more complicated. It's not necessary. So just letting things be, it'll take care of itself.
Our brains are like toddlers.
To move that, what I was doing when I was working with terminally ill patients, a lot of them were coming to me and talking about the way they were thinking, wanted to change their thinking. So I took them through the process of, I can't remember the lady's name, but the book was...
Castillo.
What was that?
Brooke Castillo?
No, she was an ex-real estate agent, and her whole story was on how she helped people to change the way they were thinking. It wasn't by looking at the way they were thinking. Whatever you're thinking, how does that make you feel? This is what I used to do with the clients. I'd ask them, well, how does that make you feel? And they tell me how bad they felt and everything else. I said, well, what's an alternative? How would you prefer to feel? And they talk about that. Then I'd start asking. This is where the experience came in. So they weren't thinking about it, but they were now telling me what they would like to be doing. And I asked them, well, if you like those feelings, what are you doing when you had those feelings in the past? If they said, oh, I love walking on the beach, well, tell me about that. You're in the soft sand, the hard sand, in the water's edge. What are you smelling? What are you hearing? What are you seeing, etc., using all 5 of their senses. Even their taste of what they were tasting in the air, etc. And then we talk about that, and their thoughts aligned with their feelings.
Yeah.
We didn't touch their original thoughts at all. We left those alone.
I
But now
think
they
there
have
are
a
many.
new view to it all.
I think there are many different ways to get to the same thing. Like there's the ABCD model, activating event, the belief about it, the consequence, blah, blah, blah. So there's many different models you can use. And I guess, Dave is talking about not changing the thinking. So that's another perspective. There's a lot of different perspectives. And I think people need to find what works for them.
Oh, yeah, there's
everyone likes
different
different
techniques.
things. Yeah, and resonates with different things, because I can see what Dave is saying, but I have a slightly different perspective. It doesn't mean that Dave is wrong, and it doesn't mean that I'm wrong. There's no right or wrong. You've just got to get there in a way that resonates with you.
Well, that's it.
Think,
it's
guys?
like with all the different modalities we have, and that some people do a medallion and go, it's the best thing since sliced bread.
That's it.
But then I've worked in so many different areas, different modalities, and I use a combination. The combination is different with every person.
Yeah.
So again, understanding comes back into it, because before I can suggest to somebody, well, hey, why don't you try this? I have to fully understand them.
Yeah.
So understanding's at the basis of everything that we do.
Yeah. By the way, I made an error when I was talking before. I didn't mean subconscious thinking. I meant unconscious. So from unconscious to conscious, not subconscious. My apology. That might have sounded confusing. Okay, because it goes back to that thing that I was saying, that we have a lot of thoughts, but we're not aware of most of them. I believe our brain is like a toddler with a knife, right? And you've got to manage it. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't my saying. Someone else said that. I can't remember who it was. But we need to manage our brain. We don't need to do anything, but it's to our benefit to manage our brain. And some people need more managing than others. Yeah, because you don't want that toddler running around with a knife. It's dangerous, right?
Yeah. For those that are listening and hearing the word manage, the first thing I then go is, well, what does the word manage actually mean? Because to each person,
it means different things.
This is why it always comes back to asking questions. I always say we've got 2 eyes, 2 ears, and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion, and when we're using our mouth, ask questions. Ask every possible questions we can think of, and then ask one more when we've done that. And that last one is, from everything you told me, this is what I'm understanding. Have I got it right? Yeah,
just when they've had enough, hey, Alan? Of you asking them questions, you ask them just one more. No, definitely, without a doubt. I'm just cracking a joke. So it's an interesting topic you bring up, Alan, that we've been discussing it already, that the same word can mean so many different things. Like I remember working with with a counsellor myself, and she was correcting me because I kept on saying my feeling is, and she kept on, this was years ago, she kept on saying to me, it's not your feeling, it's what you're thinking that's causing you to feel that way. But I just could not get that out of my head, like, the lingo. So it's just really interesting that different things mean different strokes for different folks.
See, that's why I stopped using things like psychometric profiling, where we'd ask people questions, because it depended on how they interpreted those questions. Whereas if I wanted to be more accurate, I used observation. Observe, because it's not so much, as I say, I can't hear a word you're saying because your actions are deafening. Actions are the things that give us a much better understanding about things. Words, well, it depends on the intent behind the words, but also it depends very much on the understanding the person who is mentioning those words that they have on that, plus also me listening to those words.
Yeah, exactly.
But how many arguments come from that? Because people just go, oh, you mean such and no. What I'm hearing is, do you mean that, is what we should be saying, not saying you said this.
Yeah. Is that what I'm hearing you say? That's what we say in coaching all the time. Just to check in with the client to make sure that what we've heard is what they mean, I guess. Yeah.
And it's advisable to check in on ourselves as well.
I think that's where the awareness comes in. Hey, Dave?
Yeah. A related question that I like to ask is, what else could this mean? I'll ask that of other people, but I'll also ask it of myself. If I notice a thought that doesn't feel right, or maybe it occurs to me that's probably not even true.
Yeah.
So then I'll ask, what else could this mean?
Yeah, that's a
And
great
it,
question. I love it.
and it always opens like an infinite range of possibilities.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's a really good question. Because whenever we ask ourselves a question, our brains are very good at getting to work and finding an answer. And one of the things that when I first started out in coaching, which was about 10 years ago, is I used to get frustrated thinking, well, why don't I have the answer straight away? But now I'm actually quite glad that when I don't come up with the answer straight away, and it takes time to get it.
The answers are likely to come from your past life experience, what's in your awareness. So it's this circle.
As a coach, it looks to me like my client has all the answers inside them. I'm not responsible.
You're not the expert.
No,
not at
I'm
all.
not there to give my client the answers ever.
Yeah. No, you're there to help them find the answers
within,
because they have all the answers without a doubt.
They have to get past that the negative thinking, the patterns, the conditioning, the pain or the emotions that are there, to be able to tap into that deep inner wisdom that will make the shift for them.
This is why this unconditional laughter has been such a profound vehicle for self-discovery, because even when someone struggles, even when they find the laughter is not readily forthcoming, it's still just an experience that you can look at and say, okay, tell me what you're noticing. And it will always point back to the nature of thought, creating the perception of the experience. And seeing that, understanding that, for me, looks like everything. When someone's understanding the nature of thought as the way of constantly creating perception, now we can start looking at these deeper things about connection.
I've got a question for you, Dave. You know how kids like under the age of, I don't know, 2 or 3 just laugh naturally? And they keep laughing and they literally are kind of pissing themselves laughing. What's your perception on that?
Same as for adults. Your infinite laughter supply is always available. And the fact that we can observe this in children is what sometimes is the impetus for an adult to say, oh, well, okay, then let me have a go. Let me experience this for myself. And then when we again take that same kind of approach, well, let's look at babies and children and see what other experiences do they all have all around the world, even before they learn a language or have the intellectual capacity to understand things. We see children are infinitely curious.
Oh, yes.
Children are infinitely spontaneous and playful. And so all sorts of things. So for me, with the exploration of laughter, what I've seen is your infinite laughter supply is always available. And if it's true about laughter, it's true about life. So you have not only an infinite laughter supply, you have an infinite supply of all these other things I just mentioned: curiosity, playfulness, creativity, resilience, love, on and on and on. But my words won't convince anybody of that. It can only be learned through their own experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Some really good points there, Dave.
We've just had life, I think, beat it out of us, you know, from the childhood. For example, I have a 4-year-old nephew who has been the light of my life. I love spending time with him because he reminds me of that joy. And I feel that when I'm around him, he was always experiencing and laughing and curious and all the things that you said. Then all of a sudden we'd go to the park and he'd climb up and go down the ladder and the slippery dip. All of a sudden he was climbing up 3 steps and he'd stop. I can't go any higher, I'll hurt myself, and climb back down because somebody had created a program in him. All of the programs we have throughout 30, 40, 50 years of life that we need to resolve before
Yeah.
to be aware of and resolve to get that real laughter back.
Mm.
And I'm trying so hard to keep that 4-year-old where he is so he doesn't lose that joy. I'm telling you, you did it last week. You did it.
Yeah.
It's fun. Come on, let's go. And he's up 4 steps, back down. Someone
Yeah.
told me he couldn't go any further than 4 steps.
The fear steps in, huh?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I think this goes back to what you were talking about before, Irena, with unconscious thought. There's a metaphor that I love that says fish don't know they're in water.
Exactly. Yeah.
The human equivalent is we're not aware of all of our thoughts.
That's right. Yeah.
So we take on a lot of thoughts that come from other people's thinking that we don't realize we've taken on, that we've integrated into. Yeah, right. So now here we're talking about our beliefs that are really just thoughts we've stopped questioning whether they're true or not. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So when we can raise our awareness, again, back to the topic of conscious evolution, right? When we can raise our awareness about how the nature of thought is creating our perception, that we're not always aware of all of our thoughts, that we all think things at times that aren't even true, like I'm isolated, I'm alone, I'm disconnected. That's never true.
And we don't question them, Dave.
It's never true.
We don't
But
they become this strong thing. They're stronger than anything for a lot of people.
So to me, this is the key to conscious evolution and humanity reaching a new level where we can see that particularly thoughts that say we're alone, isolated, and disconnected are just like other thoughts that aren't true. Your nephew can climb higher on the ladder.
I know that.
Right? Of course.
Now he doesn't.
We as humans can climb
we get in our own way.
Of course.
All the time.
So, and that was the topic of the other panel that I was on with you, Alan, recently. Progress is the result that occurs when we stop making trouble for ourselves. When we get out of our own way, the inevitable result is we climb higher on that ladder.
Exactly.
Humanity can evolve when we get out of our own way.
Yeah.
And that's
stop
where
sabotaging ourselves.
As coaches and therapists or whatever positions people might hold, our job is not to tell the other person what they should be doing because they've been getting that all their life. The only way they're going to get out of that, it's got to be their experience. And the word educate was never to put in. The word educate was to draw out. So our job, and the wisdom that if they hear it from themselves and start to accept it and then understand it and appreciate it, that's when they will change that programming. Because it's not that somebody forced the programming into them, it's the fact that they took it in.
Exactly.
Well, we never ever taught that we don't have to believe what somebody else tells us.
Well,
we're not taught
I was a good student as I grew up.
And they tell us, you have to do this. You have to believe me. I tell you, this is, you go get a job, you do this.
And we were all bloody good students. We may have been lousy at maths and English and things like that, but those particular lessons, all of us got a high distinction in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then you chuck in epigenetics on top of that, and we've got a lot to work through. But you know, it is possible. I work specifically with women only because our brain is so different, and we go in and we work at a conscious and unconscious level to get to that inner wisdom. They get their own learnings coming through, and it clears belief by belief, and why completely rechanges how they think. New perception, new shift, new way of living. Clearing, resolving, all of that, but very quickly, because you don't have to go through all those experiences. You just have to get your own learnings around that belief or whatever to shift it. Because some of them they're deep little suckers.
Little suckers, yes, indeed
little
they are.
Hooks with barbs on them. They're pretty hard to get out. Excellent. Okay. Well, this has been brilliant. I'm enjoying this conversation. I love the banter and getting deeper into understanding the phrases and the terms that we use and how people see things in a different way as well, because it just shows that we are infinite beings. There is no two people on the planet with the same personalities or thought process or experiences. And to be able to sit down and have conversations with people and learn from their experiences and everything else, I think it's such a gift.
Totally.
I always
Mm.
appreciate it when everybody comes along to these panels because, as I say to everybody, people say to me, "Oh, you're doing a great thing." I said, "No, I'm just greedy. I just get the opportunity to be part of these conversations."
Yeah.
And being an introvert, karaoke bars bore the life out of me, but going and having a deep conversation with people, as we do in these panel discussions, oh God, this is food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Food
the
for
best
thought.
part.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
So just in wrapping up, anything that you would like to leave with each of the people? Not so much something that they should do, but something that you've found that's worked for you or that they might be able to have a look at themselves.
Shall I start?
Yep, if you would.
For me, the best place, or I think the best place to start is to start becoming aware of your thinking. Step number one, and then question it. Step number two. And I think you will go a very long way to understanding yourself, understanding your tendencies, because we all have different tendencies. We all do things differently. And I think when you understand yourself, it is much easier to create any change that you wish.
That's it. Everything's around the understanding. Dave.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to sort of build on what Irena's saying, I mean, to me, it looks like if you want to learn about cells, look through a microscope. If you want to learn about stars, look through a telescope. And if you want to learn about yourself, look through your laugh.
Yeah,
your experience of laughing can teach you about the nature of thought. So it's not just one particular thought that may be true or not true, but the nature of thought itself in creating perception and feelings. So that's kind of
brilliant.
what my work is about.
Excellent, thank you. And Maria.
Well, that's hard following up, Dave. I guess for me, I want to tell anyone who's out there, it doesn't matter where you're at, where your awareness is, or where your feelings, your thoughts, your happy place, whatever it is, there's somebody else who's right there with you. You are not alone. You're not different or broken or anything like that. You just have to take those first few steps, like everyone has said, in creating some new awareness. And if that means reading a book or getting a coach or doing something different, and then you go to the next step and then go to the next, but you have to take the first step first. There's always that first step, no matter how hard it is, but know that there is something out there that is going to resonate with you to then take those next steps. I say that because I did a lot of things and I felt like it didn't work for me. There was something wrong with me, but it's not that. It's just taking those steps until you get to the place where you can take the next step and get more in touch with you rather than worrying about everybody else. It is that inner awareness that's going to make the changes.
And do it with other people. It's like these the socks that we've been handing out in the business of smiles. We talk about the black dots being the tough times you go through in your life. You're not going to get out and they're going to happen. But the yellow, the warmth of winter sun, the camaraderie, the right support around you, say yes, get the right support around you. Talk to people who can have deeper conversations without taking on what they're saying, but discuss it and take it on what feels right for you. But if you do it on, just try and do it on your own, all those black dots turn into a black pair of socks. They all actually connect together. You want to keep them separate. Have the right people around you. Have discussions like we're having here. Find the people who can be open, not be judgmental, but will ask you if you use a certain word. They won't assume that it meant something. They will ask you what that meant and have that deeper discussion to understand each other. Because at the end of the day, everything is understanding. Understanding others, understanding ourselves.
Good one, Alan. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for being here and that. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Irena, David, Marie.
Thanks, everybody.
It's been really great. So for everybody else who's been listening today, I hope you've got a lot out of it. And the other thing is always go back and check the other panel discussions as well. They're all well, I've got to update the file, but the file will have everybody in there, the subjects we talked about. have a look for what it is that you're looking for answers for, and just go and listen to some of those, and listen to the words and the way people are speaking, and listen to their experiences, and then work out what suits you. Again, Irena, Dave, and Maria, thanks very much for being here, and we'll see
Thanks for
everybody on the
having us.
next campfire.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye for
you.
now.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.